Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining me or watching this at a later date. We're going to jump right back in. So, where we left off yesterday, actually, why don't we go ahead and take a look? So, we went from a flat image to actually building our verse screen. And also one of the things is I figured out what was going on with this, not the customer service floor not actually centering. It's because when you set the H align, let's go back to Sublime, and that was when you set the H line to this center, then it actually puts the X and Y origin to the center of the thing. So here on line 22, I was subtracting the string width and dividing it by 2 when I didn't need to do that because the origin is already the middle. So we'll probably have a little bit of code to clean up, take out there, because we're not doing that anymore. And switching back to the other things that we did were we added back in we put in the sprites for the players that were selected either by the actual person playing it and also the computer, the AI. And we made those dynamic, so whoever you chose, it would automatically position that to the left because that's where the player usually sees theirs, and then second player or the AI is always to the right. Okay, and we added the background image and we added all of our text. So we're going to jump right in and start with animating the characters, like they're going to slide in from the sides to give this page a little more of a dynamic feel. So switching back to Sublime, first thing I think we can do and cleans this up a little bit is we don't need to have these as separate things anymore. And we're not using that variable anymore, so we can get rid of that. And our text X is just this, so we probably don't need that variable either. Okay, let's just double check that still works. Looks good. So going back to Sublime, the next thing I really want to do is the menu. We don't need to see it every single time, so I'm going to go ahead and do room go to, and we're going to set it to 1 because that's the next, that's the character select. Actually, we can also do I believe we can use the name of it, so we'll call it player select. Let's make sure that works, because that's a little more clear what we're doing there. And I'm also going to make a quick note. Just so I don't accidentally commit that. So let's go back into here. Let's run it. And it goes straight to our select screen, so that's good. And everything seems to still be working. So now that that's good, we can go ahead and close that. Let's not doing anything with that file just yet. Actually, we'll go ahead and leave that open. So our next step is we want to start some type of animation bringing them in. So let's start with on create, we're going to do some variables. Okay, so how are we going to do this? So we're going to have already a global .player inst at this point, and we're going to get its sprite. Oh, I believe that was a constant. Marketing create. Yeah, so VS sprite was that. And now we can get we're going to get the width of each sprite, and we're going to take our X position for the player. We're going to take the 0, which is our far left side, and we're going to subtract the sprite width. So the sprite will be just off the window camera. So we'll do player X equals minus to remember what this is, get sprite get width is what that is, and we're going to do player SPR, and we're going to actually multiply that by -1. And also similarly for the computer side on the right, we're actually going to still get the width, but we're not going to multiply it by -1. We're actually going to add it onto our viewport width. So the width of our entire camera viewport is actually this 2560. So we're going to take the, actually, I think we can just go ahead and set it to that, because then it'll be the beginning of the sprite will be on that over there. So we'll start with that. And now that we're doing this, let's see, we're going to draw a sprite, X padding. So X padding is actually going to be our end sprite. So let's do start end player SPRX equals, and we're not going to do X padding like that. We're going to do player and X equals, that's 80. Which now we probably don't even need a variable, we'll just use that. Or maybe I'm overthinking this. Can't forget your semicolons. So start CPU. So what is going to be, it's going to be it's actually going to be the viewport width, and we're going to subtract our, well, we have it over here, don't we? Player CPU right there. Because when you flip it, I think the origin goes onto the opposite side, the X origin. So I think we do need to add in the sprite width. So sprite get width, and we're going to do CPU SPR. And we'll just make this 80. So now that we have those set as variables, instead of setting this variable, or even needing that, let's see, this is going to be start player SPR X. This will be start CPU SPR X. So again, we're going to start them off the edges of the screen here, and then we're going to animate them in. So that's why we're making these changes that seem like we're just doing the same thing in a different file. Because the create event only gets called once, and this draw gets created on every frame. So we're going to, as time goes on, we're actually going to set this X up a certain amount till it reaches our end, and then we're going to stop, and that's just going to be our X position for those two. So now if we run this, we should not see our characters, our sprites on the screen. Or we get an error. VS SPR not set. No. Because we removed that variable. once more. Okay, sweet. And just to make sure that our end positions are correct, we're going to just do that and, oops, sorry. So all I did was to test that our end position is where it's supposed to be, I'm going to set these to end. And then we're going to go ahead and run it just to make sure. Okay, so it looks like we're in business here. So we'll undo that, we'll go back to our start position, and now what we'll need to do is we'll probably need some variables for current player SPR X equals, and on create we're just going to set it to this start variable. We'll do the same thing for CPU, and this is going to be the our actual state of where it is, and this is what we're actually going to be modifying. So, and I'm just going to work with the player for now. So first thing we're going to do is if current player SPR X is less than our end player SPR X, so as long as our current X position is not past our end one, we're actually going to add X. That was a poor. We're add some pixels to this current X position, and then we're going to actually draw a sprite with new X position. So that's pretty much it. So we just need to figure out what our our animation interval is. So since this, this is per frame, I'm going to say we're just going to try something pretty small, like 5. So it'll be 5 pixels. And actually we should double check that plus the animate interval is less than. So basically on this frame we're going to be adding the animated interval, but we want to make sure that the current X plus that is still less than our player sprite X, or end one. So if that's the case, then we're going to go ahead and do plus equals and animate interval, and then this becomes current. So the other thing is, if it is greater than our end, then we just need to do it needs to be set to the end player SPRX. Which also means that we should have this outside of our else, and we can actually do, no, I was going to say we could do a ternary, but we don't want to, because here we're actually appending our interval, and here we're not. So this should work. Let's make sure everything is saved. We'll go to here and run it. Could it be any slower? So we're going to have to change that every so often. Let's make sure it actually stops. Someday in the near future. Hey, look at that. At least it stopped. So that just means this probably needs to go up to, let's just start with 25. Oops. So this is from 1 or 5 pixels every frame. We're going to go up to 25. And this is probably still going to be, actually let's go big. Let's do 50 might be too much. Let's do 30. Now let's try running it again. That's not too bad. Try running it again. I kind of want it to be it gets faster as it comes in and then stops. So maybe we'll mess around with that for a brief second. No, actually, we'll leave it be. I think 30 is good. We'll maybe I'll mess around with that later. That's the type of polishing stuff that you can do. So now for the other side, we're going to, instead of CPU SPRX, and instead of plus equals, we're going to do minus equals. And as long as the current computer sprite X minus animated interval is less than the end for that computer sprite X. Otherwise, we set it to that. And that might be all we need to do there, too. Oh, I'm horribly sorry. I keep forgetting to switch this. Let me just go ahead and undo all that, and we can redo it for you. So I basically took this code, because it's going to be exactly the same, and we're going to uncomment that, and everywhere it says, oops, a little too much. Everywhere below here it says player, we're actually going to make it CPU, and instead of adding on our animate interval, we're actually going to subtract it, because again we're going from far off to the right to into the frame. And yeah, so I think that'll just work. Womp womp. So what happened? Oh. Missed one. So I still had it hard coded to the start X position. So not a big deal. So how's everyone doing today? Anyone actually interested in watching the Super Bowl? I'm probably not going to. See you later. Let's watch that again. Does it actually start in the right place? It started off screen, I think. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to Sublime and see if we can figure out why it's doing that. So we're saying as long as it's greater than, because again we're subtracting and we're moving it to the left, which is subtracting the actual X value. So that is an easy fix. I wonder if we should go a little faster. I'm definitely thinking faster now. Anyone have any opinions on it? I think we'll maybe take it up to, let's just double it. See how that works. I think I will, at the polishing stage, I'll probably make it a curve so it starts off a little slower and then speeds up and then comes to an end. Actually, that looks pretty good. I am okay with that. Okay, so how can we clean up this code a bit? I could make a script. They are doing pretty different things. Well, they're doing the opposite of each other. Now let's just keep going. Let's keep making our thing work. So what would be next here? If we go back to here, we need to add this verse graphic. So talking to Nate, who's been kind of designing this stuff and giving me the assets, he's thinking that it's basically we'll have the verse kind of like slam down and then have the red blood splatter around it. So we'll see. We'll probably have to have the versing larger than we expect, and then shrink it down and fade it in. So I'm going to start at like a 0 opacity, and it's all going to be super quick, but nice subtle movements I think are the way to go with these things. So that absolutely needs to be all the way at the top layer. So we're going to first, we probably need to import those sprites. So where did we put? Right in here we did. So create a sprite. We're going to say this is verse text. So a lot of these sprites and stuff that we have, like some of them are super polished and production ready, and some of them are placeholders, and some of them are, yeah, that works, it looks good, but we're probably going to touch it up from time to time. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go through this type of thing. So I'm going to import that, and verse text, that's good. Since we're going to be going from, I was thinking about making this larger in general, but since we're actually going to be going from, 0 opacity to solid, and I think it will be okay if it's slightly pixelated as we scale down. So I'm going to leave that as is, and we're going to create another sprite, and this is going to be First Blood Splat. Splat, not splate. And gave us this, so add that. So now we have our 2 sprites for this. Let's go ahead and we'll probably, just like we did with the previous sprites, we're probably going to place them where they're supposed to go and then work on the animating them in. So draw sprite. And the first sprite we're going to do is the verse blood splat, and we're going to do 1, and its X position, I think. So we have the we can actually set, when we make the sprite, we can set its origin, which is where the X and Y, like the beginning of it, or I don't know how to really describe it, but we're going to set it to middle center, which makes it so that anytime we place this somewhere using X and Y coordinates, it's actually going to look at the X and Y coordinate from the middle of the sprite, where it's by default set to top left. And we've been doing, for all of our character animations, we've been doing bottom left, because then it's just to have a set point, and also our when we hit the floor and everything, we wanted that to be the bottom, and it just made it easier for positioning those. But here we're going to set this to middle center. That way we don't have to do the whole calculation of how wide is it and divide it by 2, because this is the only place it's going to be used. So instead of X, we're going to do our viewport width divided by 2, and then viewport height. Oh, but that's actually not going to be right. We need to figure out where we're going with it. It actually needs to be kind of in the center of that white bar. Actually, it needs to be kind of higher than that. I'm kind of thinking, does that look like a different image? Okay, you can go away. We're not using you. Does kind of look like a different image. That's okay. We'll mess with it. So actually, how big is it? It is 635. Let's put it at the bottom. Put it at 0, or the height of the viewport, and see how it looks. And we'll go ahead and draw the verse sprite on top of it too. Oh, let's make sure that origin is the same as well. We're going to do middle center. Actually, oh, and this is something that's helped me out a lot in GameMaker Studio, is like if you're kind of looking at this, you can accidentally like click and it sets it anywhere in here, and it sets the origin to a custom, and wherever you put it. And it's just, there's been so many times where I'm like trying to debug why it's not positioning something where I expect it to, and it's because I've accidentally clicked up here and it puts the up here in the top part or whatever, and it puts that origin there, and it's super frustrating to like track down why positioning isn't working. Now it's happened to me so often I've kind of realized that. But they have this lock thing here, So that's basically, you can't alter where that goes until you unlock it. So that's been very helpful if you're new to GameMaker Studio. That's a little tip there for you. Okay, so those are all middle center. And actually, so this, I think the Y, nah, let's mess around. Let's keep it where it is for now. And then this is going to actually be, if we go, let's see here. So the verse is actually going to be, the bottom is going to be at the, of the VS is going to be at the bottom of that, which leads me to think if we actually unlock this and set it to bottom center, and that will just let us be able to put the 0 for that, or the actual viewport height as well. And we're actually going to have to do some math here for this one. Var BS B splat Y equals, and we're going to need the viewport height minus sprite get height, and it's VS blood splat, and we're going to divide that by 2. So we're getting the viewport height, and then we're subtracting half of the height of our sprite there. So that should move it up halfway. And we'll just replace that here, VS, BS, Y. And don't forget your semicolons. So like rough coming from Ruby and CoffeeScript where there's just no semicolons, and then I'm in here. Actually, the reverse is worse. It's when I'm at work and I'm doing Ruby and I start putting semicolons at the end of code. It's just like, we don't need that. So let's go ahead and run this and see what we got. Okay, so it's a little funky. I think the verse is where it's supposed to be. We might need to, because the sprite of the blood splat has a lot of like small things going off to the right, so we might need to kind of hard code a offset for that. So I'm going to go ahead back to Sublime. And so we need it to move to the right. So we're going to add, and I don't know, let's do width, and we're going to divide that by 3. So we'll basically a third of the sprite's width. That's going to be our offset. BS X. Let's see what that gives us. Ooh, too much. I'm thinking knock that off. Probably a fifth, maybe. So changing this from a third of the width to a fifth of it. So we'll go ahead and rerun it. Oh, that's not too shabby. That is not too shabby. I feel like it could go back to the left a little bit. Which would, I don't know, make that a 6. We'll just say that 6 is going to be good, and we'll look at it next time we get something done. So, now that we have the finished position for all these, actually we're going to have to basically do the same thing that we did up here, where we have our start and end and then a current. So I'm going to do BS for our verse blood splat sprite, and that's going to be our, which I don't actually need it named because it's not set to a variable anywhere. So start sprite X is going to be this right here. Again, so I'm putting this now in the create, so it gets set once, and then we can use it as our kind of our baseline. So because we're going to be messing with our position with it. Actually, no, I don't think we will be messing with the position. We're going to actually leave the position where it is. We're just going to make it larger. And we're also going to mess with the opacity. So as it comes down, it's going to try to like fade it in and try to make it seem like it's coming down. So we're going to leave those where they are. And since we need to mess with the, and the blood splat is actually not going to change as far as the scale of it. So this is just going to be our opacity on this one. So if I go back to, I'm going to Google this real quick, GML, draw sprite ext, just to remind myself of our, so it's just like draw sprite. Let me get us back into Sublime so you can actually see this. Just like our regular draw sprite, it's going to be what sprite we're going to use, the frame that we want to draw, and then our X and Y position, and then the next arguments are our X scale, which I think we're going to start with 1.5. That's going to be huge. We'll do 1.3, and we don't want to skew it any, so we're going to do 1.3 for the Y scale as well. Rotate is going to be 0. We don't want to rotate it at all. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking ahead to the verse thing. Our scale is going to be the same for the blood splat. We're just going to bring it in. So the next one is our color. This is what it blends with the sprite, and it looked like C white didn't alter our stuff last time, so we're going to keep it that. And then our alpha. So alpha is going to be a variable that we set. So on start, we're going to set it to 0. So when it gets created, we're going to set it to 0. And then, and just like we did above with the positioning, we're going to set if BS alpha is and actually we'll probably want plus alpha interval. So if that is less than 1, which is all the way, 0 to 1, then we want to do BS alpha plus equals, and then our alpha interval. Caps lock, else one. So if this is actually going to be greater than 1 when we tack on the alpha interval, we just want to go ahead and set it to 1. And now we're going to need this over here. Change to that, and alpha. And let's start with a 0.1. So every frame it's going to get basically 1%, actually that would be 10 when it 10% more in place, or more opaque rather. So, and now we have already on that. Run it. Okay, we ready? Uh-oh. Just not getting it. Did I forget to BS alpha? BS alpha is, did I do? As long as that's less than 1. No, that makes sense. And alpha interval is 0.1. Well, let's just make sure we're hitting that. So we're going to do show debug message, and we're going to do so we're going to have to actually look at the logs after we do this. Oops. Sorry about that. Let me show you what I'm doing here. I'm basically just adding some logging to each side of this if statement, because I have a suspicion that we're either not hitting this or this is not getting updated at all. So I'm adding that logging in. We'll go back to GameMaker Studio and we'll run it. So actually I'm going to switch us back to here so we can actually watch the logs, because that's what we're actually kind of important for us here. And I'm going to hit enter. Oh, there it came in, of course. So let's just leave the logging in and I'll run it again and let you see what I saw. I'm really not, maybe I didn't have a file saved, I guess. That happens often. So go ahead and go back to Sublime. And I guess we can remove this. Okay, so that looks good. The only problem that we're going to have to mess around with later is we don't want it to start coming in. Actually, before we start moving on, let's actually, I think it was actually coming in too slowly. So actually, no, that's not bad. We could speed it up a little bit. So instead of 1, let's do 1.5. So that'll be 15%. It'll come, like every frame, it'll come in 15% alpha. Okay, so again, we'll look at that next time we're in here doing something more useful, because it takes so long to compile and everything. The next thing that we need to think about is we don't actually want it to just come in like right away. We want this verse text sprite to be done its animation first before we kick off our alpha thing. So it's going to be the verse comes down and hits the canvas and then shows the blood splat. So let's go ahead and comment that out so we're not distracted by it. And our verse thing, again, we're going to have to go from sprite to sprite ext, and all of our arguments are the same until you get to the end here. So here we're going to want our 1.3, 1.3. These are our x and y scales, and these I think are going to be our end size. And we're going to have our alpha at, 0 is rotation, and then C white, and then we're going to have our alpha as 1. We'll figure out the alpha here in a second. And let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so it's definitely bigger, but probably not as big as I want it. Yeah, I don't know why I keep re-saying it's not changing. So let's go back to here and let's make it 1.6. Yeah, that's a good start position. So we'll start out real big like that, and it'll start at 0 alpha or opacity, and then we're going to animate it, gain smaller, and also animate it to fade in. I think we're in good position with that. So let's go ahead and quit that, go back to Sublime. And so we're going to have to set our scale to a variable. So we'll do VST for VS text scale. I'm just going to weird abbreviations everywhere. So that scale is going to start out as 1.6 to start. and we want our n scale to be 1, so that makes sense. So basically we're going to do a similar thing to this. Scale. We'll set our scale interval, and as long as it's greater than 1, because we're going to start out big and we're going to get smaller. So, and that means that we're subtracting, and same thing here, and yank to underscore, oops, yank to underscore, b2 underscore, and yes, so if it, otherwise it's going to be set to 1. So that just means that we also need oops, and what should our interval be? So we're going from 1.6 to 1. How about we'll start with 0.1. So that'll mean it'll take 6 frames to get down. Maybe we should go a little smaller. How about 0.5? I mean, this all needs to happen pretty quickly. I mean, we don't want the animation to be the whole focus of everything. And okay, yeah, let's give that a try. I don't think that did anything. Double check all my files are saved. They are not. Don't mind me, this is my first time working in any type of game development, apparently. Are we running? Hello? What we got? Come on, big money. Ah, that's not too shabby. Just another quick tip. We added a shortcut key to R to reset. Now we're going to take this out, obviously, before we go to let anyone actually play it. But it's really handy for when you're trying to do things like this and you just want to see the same thing happen again, or you want to try something else out without changing any code. It's easy to just reset. I think that animation as well is good. Let's go back to Sublime. I would love to use that same if statement for our alpha. That may work out, it may not. So our alpha is going to start out at 0. We're still going to try to use the alpha interval. I don't think this is going to work. We could do the math to try and make them be in sync, but it's probably not worth it. And so, let's see. So we're going straight to 1 for everything. So our 1 here. Again, this is the last argument of this function, and it takes our alpha, current alpha. So the st alpha. Yeah. I think that the speed needs to be faster all around. Because it seems like it's coming in. It doesn't seem like it's slamming. So I'm going to set the scale interval to be 7. So that'll be 7%. So that goes from 0.5 to 7 on the scale interval. Here, save it, and let's go back to and see what that does. It's definitely faster. And luckily our verse is not is actually going all the way to 1 opacity, so I think we're good. Nope. Did you guys not see that? Because I forgot to switch to this. Let me try it again. There might be some frame droppage, but trust me, it looks good. Okay, so now the next step is we don't want to start doing this unless this is fully animated in. So I'm going to set another variable for add blood splat, and we're going to set this to, sorry, so again, we're not going to want any of this to animate in until this is done. So I'm going to set a variable for add blood splat, and this is going to be a simple true or false, so we're going to set the false to start out with, and once false, no. So once this is actually done, we set it to true, and then we can take all of this, if add blood splat. And let's save all of the files, switch back to GameMaker Studio, and run it. So it should be, the VS comes down from the upper higher scale and the 0 opacity. Once it's done, then the blood splat should animate in. And it's not too bad. Unfortunately, I think we want the blood splat to start a little earlier. Yeah, or maybe start from, no, that would be too janky. I was going to say maybe start from a higher opacity than 0, but I think we just started at a earlier time. So let's see, if VST scale is, let's see, greater than or equal to, actually, we need to go less than or equal to. And we're going from 1.6 to 1. Let's do 1.2. And actually, we could just set it to this. I think that looks good. Let's get back to GameMaker Studio and let's run it. I always forget to look in the right place as soon as I start it. It's actually not too bad. I'll probably end up tweaking this from time to time. I'll also probably get some other feedback and see what others say. So this may, again, is probably not the finished product, but it's doing, everything else is trivial, just messing with values and stuff. But we've got ourselves a verse thing. Okay, so I've been going for an hour. I think we can, in the next half an hour, I think we can do the last part, which is this red bar was originally just going to be a just a static thing, but I think I'm going to make it into a verse, like not a verse. It's going to be a actual loading bar, so it's going to not be there, and it's going to go from left to right, or maybe we'll start from the center and we'll just expand from the left to the right. I don't know. Anyone have any opinions on that? I think I like the from the center, but that's a little less like. Nah, yeah, I think I like it from the center, but it maybe make more sense to go from left to right. It's more of a standard loading bar, but we'll see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and we'll go back to Sublime, and as always, we're going to start with the end result, and then we're going to figure out how to get it to animate. Now this needs to go behind the blood splat, so we need to do it before the blood splat. So we're going to draw rectangle, and actually we need to draw set color, and do C red, because that's I think that's just a standard F00, which is like the bright red. I think that's what we have for our sprite color too, if I remember right. So we're going to, our start X on this is going to be 0. Our start Y needs to probably be the top of our, we go back to, it's going to be the top of this white rectangle on the bottom, where we have our marketing and CFO names. So we're just going to place it at that, and we might need to tweak it a little bit, but that's a good starting place. So we're going to do bottom Y, and actually we're going to subtract 10. So the middle, we're going to subtract 10 from the start Y, and then on the other one we're going to use bottom Y plus 10, and that'll give us our 20 pixels of height, and the middle of it will be at our bottom white point. This is X, right? Yes. So then we're going to do, for the end X, is the viewport width, and then this is going to be bottom Y plus 10. And we do not want it to be an outline, we want it to be solid, so we're going to do false. And I think that might be all we need there, so I'm going to switch back to GameMaker Studio. We're going to run it. Let's see what we got. There's also a drop shadow on that right now. I might fight with that at a later date. That might be more of a polishing thing later. Okay, so it definitely needs to be a lot thicker than that, but the positioning is pretty good. Let's I think it needs to probably be like 50 pixels tall. We'll try that. I'm going to close that, go back to Sublime. So instead of our plus 10, we'll do 25. Give it a whirl. Now I should probably just measure what that bar is. Also think it's a little higher. Oh, it's a lot higher, but is that okay? Because it's a different screen. Sorry. So if we look at where this bar is, how thick it is, and where it is, and we go into here, it's higher. I think it's a little thinner. Actually, we're going to quit that, go back to this, and we're going to just we need to find our UI, select screen. We're going to edit this image, and we're going to use the select tool, and we're going to find out how tall this thing is. I think it's like 55 pixels. Let's try that again. Yeah, it's like 54. I guess we'll do 55. That'll be close enough. Actually, 54 would be easier because all we have to do is add 2 to each of these. So replace 7, 5, replace 7. So that'll be good. I think it's okay, the positioning of it, because they're too different. We needed more space for the select, for our select, than we do for the our verse screen. We need more space above this white bar. So let's go ahead and run it. Let's see what that does. It's not too bad. Okay. So now comes the fun part, I guess, depending on how you look at it. So we're going to want to start by, so our Y positions are going to be constant. They're just, that's how tall it's going to be. That's where it's going to start and stop. The start and end X are what's going to be dynamic. So we're going to do loading start X, and we're going to do the same for this. Whoa. And just because all the other variables are start, then something X, we're going to do the same here. So we prepend with where it is and then the variable. Okay. And we'll start those off in here. And it's start loading x equals 0. Oop, nope. Window viewport width divided by 2 because we want it in the center, and same thing for our x. So now if we run it, we won't see anything because it's just going, the rectangle is not going to have any width to it, and it's going to be in the center. So let's just not even bother with that. Let's just go straight into figuring out how to animate this. So we have loading code already. It's in this step that I have commented out. So what we're just going to have to alter what we do with it. And I'm going to comment this out because that's what makes it go to the actual fighting screen, or rather remove our verse screen. So the way this works is we have our max load time, which is 3 seconds, which I might up that to 4 just for debugging. Loaded percent is at 0. Start time, that's just the, we get on create of this object, we get the timer, which is this current time, and then every step we're actually going to calculate how much time has passed while it's loading, and that's the current time minus when we started. I kind of think I went over this yesterday a bit, and then we're just going to make sure that as this grows, that we do whatever we're doing here, inside here, as long as it hasn't reached that max load time, which is 4 seconds. So all this text alpha thing is actually from a previous iteration of this, so I'm going to get rid of that. And in here we're actually going to up the load percent, and we'll just do global dot debug equals, and then string loaded percent, if I can spell, and we're going to do plus. And if it's done, we're going to delete to that, and we're just going to be like loaded people. That was I apologize. Okay, quick rundown since you were possibly hearing what I was saying but not seeing what I was saying. We have our max load time of 4 seconds here, and we have our loaded percent and our start time. This is just getting the time of right now. On each step, then we get the current time of this step, we subtract the start time, and that's how much time has been spent loading. And as long as loading is less than the max time, which is our 4 seconds, we're going to go ahead and update the loaded percent using the load time and divide by the max time. And then I'm just to see that this stuff happening, I'm going to global debug, which is going to put it in our UI visible, and once it's done, we're just going to say loaded. Again, I apologize for that. Still getting used to this OBS. So we're going to go back to GameMaker Studio. We're going to run it. See how this goes. Nope. Just keeps going back and forth between 0.1 and 0.2. Oh, it's still kind of loading. What the heck? Okay, so let's do a global dot before I start. Global dot debug equals string loading time. And then down here we're actually going to do a plus equals, and we're going to tack on a line break. And we're going to put a line break here too. And we'll see what we got going on as far as the load time. That just keeps getting bigger. So I think we need to also have it stop doing everything. Oh, it's never hitting this loaded, I don't think. Plus, let's just compare our max load time to this. So, and just double check our loading time. Time is less than max load. So then that's the current time minus the start time. Yeah, I'm not seeing why this would not be working. So what we got going on here? Oh. Okay, so my 4 seconds apparently is, our load time is not adding. Do we have this being set somewhere else? Let's do a quick search. No, it's only been done once. So this is a script I wrote to kind of make this easier. So in GameMaker Studio, for some reason, second is 1,000, or they do 1,000,000. I don't even know what that would be in whatever, but it's basically 1,000,000 times whatever argument you have. That didn't make any sense. But where everywhere else it's milliseconds, it's in this thing it looks at them as million for every second. So we have our max load time of 4 seconds. And for some reason, that seems... Get timer. Oh. No, I got it. No, that does not make any sense. So let's let's do it like I do elsewhere, where start time plus max load time. So as long as get timer, and that's actually reversed. So if the, nope, that's wrong too. So our start time is whatever seconds ago. So if we add max load time, so it's say we do it here on second 2, and then we go to do this each step thing. As long as the current time is less than that 2 plus our max time, which is 4. So as long as it's less than 6, then we can do whatever we're doing here. This is actually kind of the way I'm doing it everywhere else. I'm not sure why. And then I guess we can just do that. Ah, come on, Keith. Sorry, so what I've done here is I've moved our loading time out of there, and we're actually just going to use the start time, and we're going to add the max load time and double check that. Nope, going the wrong way. Making sure that the current time, which is off of get timer, is less than our start time plus our max load time. Oh man, and then we need to get timer here as well. Let's see what this does. Ugh. This whole timer stuff gets a little tricky, and it's just because it's code that's constantly being run that it gets a little confusing. And it's very upset. Loading time I'm using somewhere and doesn't exist. Oh, right there. So we'll save, go back to GameMaker Studio, we'll run it, and see what we get. Wow. I think we're calculating our percent wrong. Oh. Let's see if it's actually going to the gain. It should be. Yes, it is. So we're hitting this when we're supposed to be. We're hitting our loaded, but then it goes straight back into doing this. I am thoroughly and utterly confused. Somehow we're still hitting this, which goes into this is how we tell it to our global match state. We start out in this loading state, and if that's it, then we have our loading screen which we're working in. And then the next option is match.state.standoff, and that's where we actually get the round one fight thing going on. So it's setting this match standoff, this global match state to the standoff, which is supposedly happening here in this else statement here. But then it keeps on showing us that it's loading stuff. Maybe this needs to be minus. Don't mind me while I flail around with this. Did that even just get worse? Oh, I think I know what that is. That needs to be... I was adding the start time, or subtracting the start time from the get timer, but it really should be added to the max timer. That seemed to work. It's a little off. It's a little off. So we're going to try doing loaded, if loaded percent equal to 1. So we're going to let it keep going here, and if it gets less than or equal to that. Ooh. Oh, it did not like something there. Let's go back and try to actually read the error message. So it says Oh, this like do MUL execution error. That's something. Oh, because I'm trying to multiply. Trying to multiply a string, which makes perfect sense, right? So, yeah, so I was doing string loaded percent times 100, which should really be that. And we'll go back to GameMaker Studio. Yeah, see, it keeps ending when it's at 72 or 75%, which is going to be janky when we go to actually animate our loader in. I guess maybe we need to do some type of floor, or probably, yeah, floor. So I'm going to quickly Google this GML float floor. Oh, it's just a floor function. I wonder if we should be doing I don't know, let's give that a whirl, see what that does. Yeah, that's not right. So because it's a floor and it's less than one number, it's always going to be 0. Okay, well, let's move on. We're going to just go ahead and animate it, and if we only get to 75% before it loads into the other thing, we'll say okay with that for now. So the key here is, let's see, where is our loading bar? Here we go. So for each step, we're going to set our start, and actually we'll bring it over here. Start loading x equal to, we need the window viewport, rather, width minus, actually, to translate our percentage done into this, we need to multiply it by loaded percent. And we're actually going to divide that by 2 because, again, we're starting from the middle and we're going the opposite direction. So that's going to give us our percent of, X position. And we need to viewport width minus arrow keys on this keyboard are so small I keep hitting the wrong thing. Let's do so let's say that the width of the whole screen is 200. We're going to, so that's 200 times, and then our loaded percent, let's say it's at 50%, so it's actually going to be 25.25, and multiply that, and then actually going to need this from the center of it. I'm going on a lot of this on faith that my math is correct, and this will be plus. We'll just do a var half load. Half loaded percent. YOLO, man. Let's see what this does. Hey, it's doing something. What? That actually wasn't too bad. Let's look at that again. Oh, it starts at doesn't start in the right place though. It's interesting. But it is loading the way we want it. I wonder what our loaded percent is at this point. So global.debug equals loaded percent. Do we have any more? Again, I apologize. All I did was add in a global debug so we can see what our loaded percent is. I'm going to go back to GameMaker Studio. We're going to go ahead and run it again. Why is it starting at 0.7? That is odd. Let's go back to our step event, which we're right here. This calculation right here is just absolutely wrong. Okay, so this is the max time. This is what we want to end on, and this is our current time. So let's say we have a max time of 200. Let's actually keep it simple. So let's start on 2. We have max time of 4 equals 6. Now this actually in GameMaker Studio is going to be 6 million, but that's why I have that seconds thing going on. So let's say, and then get timer starts on the first frame as 2, and then we just keep adding to it. So 2, and then keeps going up. So that's 2 divided by 6, and then the next frame it might be 2.01 divided by 6, and so on and so forth until we get to 6 divided by 6, which is 1, and we have our full percent. So what am I doing wrong here? That's our 2 there, and this is our 4. And this is our 2.01, 2.2, 2 point whatever. Thinking. Maybe we'll do a quick Google search. And let's see, anything useful. We're going on almost 2 hours here. Maybe I need to take a break. What I'll do is I'll probably see if I can find a solution for this, and then just maybe make a quick video that I can post to figure this out. But the nice thing is we actually have this thing doing kind of what we want. Just need to figure out these details, which I don't really think anyone wants to sit here and stare at for quite a while. Bam. And then let's go ahead and fight. Most of our attacks. Yay, I won. Oh, he just got me the, they lost and fall to the ground, so I have to put that in. That's going to make this super nice. Yay, and I win. Okay, well, I'm going to call it a day on that one. Wait, I'm seeing network error. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call it a day on this. Like I said, I'll probably do a quick video on when I find the solution to this. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. It's just starting our load thing at a little bit further than we wanted it to, but it actually is doing the loading animation and everything. So I don't know. Again, thank you for hanging out with me on this, and for anyone who does not follow me, I am SparkMasterFlex on GitHub. Also, we just created a Twitter account for for our game, and it's ladder 2, and I'm sure if you just search for corporate ladder to hell, you'll find it there too. Go ahead and go onto there and follow them, and we'll probably be doing a lot of updates to like where the game is, any cool animations that Nate makes he'll post, and we'll probably just be doing random crap there all the time anyway. So thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.